Hi guys, it's Nick. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about the best interior design trends for 2021. These are my personal favorite interior design trends. So I know inevitably some of you are going to say, I hate interior design trends, I hate trends in general, and I just prefer a really timeless look. And for you, I say, first of all, I have a video for you where I talk about timeless design. So go ahead and watch that one. Second of all, if you don't like trends, why did you click on this video? And third of all, things that I talk about in this video are the stuff that are gonna show up in the shops that you're gonna see. So if you shop at West Elm or Target or Crate and Barrel or IKEA or whatever, these things end up in the shops anyway, so you might not think that you're affected by trends, but in the end, we all are. Okay, so the first trend I want to talk about is the movement towards warmer colors. So for the last decade or so, you've heard me talk about this on this channel, is that we have seen a lot of gray and a lot of white, and especially just people sort of favoring cooler interiors. And I think we're gonna see more of a movement towards sort of happier, warmer tones. You're gonna see more pinks, more oranges, more yellows in interior design. If you caught my video on the 2021 Benjamin Moore color palette, you'll know this already, but we're seeing that movement towards warmer colors. So I personally really love this trend because I just think we've seen so much gray over the last decade that I'm really enjoying the idea of bringing in a little bit more color, a little bit more warmth to a space. I think we're maybe ready to leave behind a decade of sort of those cool gray tones, and we're sort of embracing this sort of warm and comfortable and friendly, warmer palette, which I think is great. Now, this is not your 90s peach pink palette. I think we're going to see this show up in warmer woods and just sort of like subtle undertones leaning more towards a warmer direction. So think like really beautiful light oak flooring and not 90s dusty rose pink carpets, which, sorry mom, I have to out you for this. That's exactly what we had in the house when I was growing up in the 90s, was that sort of dusty pink carpet. So we're not really seeing that. It's coming in a little bit more subtle ways, a little bit more natural ways. I think that's what you're gonna see moving forward into 2021. Okay, the second interior design trend that I really want to talk about for 2021 is Japandi. So Japandi is a mix of Japanese Zen style and Scandinavian style. So what we are seeing is a lot of clean, simple shapes, a lot of minimalism, generally sticking things to a very neutral color palette, but where it's a little bit different and a beautiful blend of both is that it's typically is kind of a mix of a lot of different types of woods. So you're seeing some of the medium toned wood or colors like olive or sage that are more popular in a Zen style, but mixing it with that like kind of lighter woods that come with Scandinavian. So it's really neutral, it's really relaxing, it's very serene. I freaking love this style. It's really, really popular, and I think it's gonna really take off in 2021. My third 2021 design trend is sustainable design. So I think we're seeing so many more sustainable materials being brought back in. So this is things like reused materials, bioplastics, recycled goods that are then brought back in into new products. So I really love this actually for two reasons. The first is kind of super obvious, which is that we need to be more conscious of our environmental footprint. This is definitely a trend that we're seeing in lots of different industries, and design is no different. So that's awesome. But the second reason is because it's introducing sort of new materials that we'd never really had before, right? So you're seeing things like plastics that are brought in, that they're recycled plastics from different sort of products that are plastics that we've never really seen before. Well, a small company I wanna highlight, this is not sponsored, but I just think they're doing some really amazing work, is a company called Chopvalue. They're based here in Vancouver. I actually supported this company in a Kickstarter back in like 2016 or something, when they first started and they had one product. Basically what they do is they take old chopsticks from sushi restaurants, and they then like kind of heat them to the point where they kill all the bacteria and all the gross stuff. And then they form those chopsticks that otherwise would go into a landfill, and they form them into these really cool sort of wood planks that then they use for furniture. They use this for like big tables. This is like a serving board that I got. So you can see it's actually made up of all these sort of individual chopsticks because they slice them into these bricks. So cool, really sustainable, and taking something that otherwise would be a waste product and turning it into something really new and special. So again, obviously environmentally this is awesome, but it's also just a really cool material. Like you just are not gonna find that in just a regular piece of wood. So it's creating sort of new products, new textures, which I think is really neat. So definitely check out Chopvalue. Okay, so another 2021 interior design trends that I'm loving is two-tone kitchen cabinetry. So we have seen a lot of white kitchens over the last decade, right? And a lot of people have said the white kitchen is over and it's dead. I don't think it's necessarily gonna ever really go away. I just think white, just as a color choice is generally timeless. And I also think white is just really clean. And a lot of people just love that in a kitchen because you want a clean kitchen. And I totally get it. So I don't think the white kitchen is completely going away, but I love the idea of bringing in another color to maybe supplement white or just two different colors completely. So this is where you're seeing maybe your kitchen cabinets behind would be in one color, and then you'd maybe do the island cabinetry in a different color. Or you would see on the bottom, you might see a lighter color, but then on the top, you'll see a darker color on the top cabinets. So you can do white and blue, you can do white and sage, you can do black and white, you can do gray and blue. You can really get creative with your color choices here, and bringing in two colors, I just think it looks really neat. It breaks up the kitchen nicely, and it's a trend that I'm really enjoying. So definitely, I mean, the all white kitchen is kind of classic, but mix it up and add a little bit of color to your kitchen. And I think two-tone cabinetry is here to stay for a bit. Okay, another trend for 2021 that we're seeing more of is curves. So this can be things like curved couches, curved archways, curved chairs, curved kitchen islands, curved desks. It's just so many different forms. We're seeing things having more curvature. Now here's the thing, this is why I like this trend. So first of all, things that are squares or rectangles in your space planning generally fit really well together, right? There's no wasted space with a square. But the thing is about a curve is not only is it visually interesting and breaks up sort of the monotony of just all these clean straight lines all over the place, but these graceful curves, they also can really help movement and flow in your space. So for example, a really good example here is a dining table. So depending on the room, the curved table can really help with sort of movement and flow around the table. Also helps, by the way, with your guests being able to communicate with one another. Don't you find sometimes when you're dealing with like a really long rectangular table, it can be really difficult for people to talk to each other. But with a round table, everybody can see each other and everybody can converse more freely. So I think curves are something really, really popular and we're gonna see more of in 2021. I think functionally they can work better oftentimes than squares and rectangles do. And it's just visually appealing and just sort of breaks up the monotony of all the kind of straight lines that you see in your typical design. Okay, another trend for 2021 that I'm really loving is, I'm gonna call it just like interesting walls or like textured walls. So we're seeing more and more wood slat moldings, brick, terrazzo, marble. So as you guys know, I'm also a really big fan of panel molding because it's a fairly cheap and easy way. It's DIY friendly, but y'all know I'm not a DIYer, so I got somebody else to it. But the panel molding is fairly easy to install, and basically it just creates some depth and texture on your wall and sort of creates some shadow and just some dimensions. So walls are obviously very flat, but providing a little bit of texture on them or using a more interesting material, again, like terrazzo or marble or brick, and you're just seeing more and more of those, and it provides like some visual interest to the wall without necessarily having these blank walls all over the place. Another trend that I see really taking off in 2021, even more so than it has in the past, is going to be things like rattan. So the 70s are back. These rattan and sort of woven materials are really going to take off, I think, in 2021. So you all know I'm a big fan of rattan. I talked about it in my IKEA video where I highlighted a whole bunch of rattan products because I just think they just bring a little bit of life and a little bit of color and warmth to a space. But it's not just about rattan and wicker, but you're going to see materials like seagrass or bamboo start to really take off more and more than they already have in the past. And I also think things like caning is only going to get more and more popular. So if you're not familiar with caning, it's basically weaving the rattan, and it comes in these sort of sheets, and it can look really beautiful on sort of a tabletop or in different furniture pieces. And you're just seeing more and more of this material being brought into the space. So really beautiful material that you're going to see a lot more of in 2021. Another trend that I think we're going to see more and more is the light woods. So we have seen a lot of movement away, I think, from the sort of gray hardwood flooring or engineered hardwood or whatever wood flooring that we've seen in the past. Now, this doesn't mean that if you have gray hardwood, you need to rip it up. That's not what I'm saying. But I think for new designs, we're seeing a lot of lighter woods. You're seeing a lot of really light oak, sort of that Scandinavian design is really, of course, still super popular. And just seeing something that's going to be really light and really sort of freshen up the space. I think this also really feeds in well to the warmer color palette that I talked about earlier. So you're just seeing a little bit more movement towards things that are really light and fresh, but most of all, just things that are a little bit more natural. So having, you know, wood in its more natural state, which is depending on the species of wood, things like oak flooring, you're seeing it being like left alone and being just left being really light and bright. And I think that's really beautiful. So definitely a trend more towards lighter flooring. But of course, you're also seeing that carried through into different furniture pieces as well. A lot more lighter woods, a movement away sort of the really dark and heavy woods, and moving more towards things like really beautiful light oak, or things like acorn materials that are a little bit in the medium to lighter wood tones. The one I want to talk about is Grand Millennial. Now, some it's called like traditional 2.0. People call it kind of a bunch of different things. Granny chic, I've also heard thrown around. Okay, so let's talk about what that is and why it's on my love list. So although this necessarily isn't my personal taste, I still had to put it on the love list because I think for all you traditional folks, it's really nice to see some of the more traditional design elements brought back in and being a little bit trendy again. I think that what we've seen in 2020 is that the home, it needs to be comfortable, it needs to be a safe place for you to be able to spend a lot of time in. And traditional design, although isn't always my personal taste, I think it is one of the benefits of that design style is that it's really comforting. It's really comfortable and it is familiar for a lot of people. So I think with Grand Millennial or the new traditional or traditional 2.0 or whatever, it's sort of an updated, slightly fresher version of the original traditional design that we have seen in the past. And overall, even though it might not necessarily be my personal taste, I still appreciate it because I think for people that like that design style, it's so nice to see it brought back in for people to maybe bring it back into their home and bring in some of the more traditional elements because there are some real advantages and benefits to traditional design. So I think it's great that it's been given its due and that it's sort of being brought back in to being great design because it is beautiful in its own way. I think you're gonna see it more in the shops. I think you're gonna see more inspiration around traditional than you ever have before. And I think that's overall a wonderful thing. Thanks guys, hope you enjoyed this video. If you'd like to learn more about what I consider to be timeless design, feel free to click here and I'll see you all in the next video. Thanks a lot, bye.